What's up, guys? Welcome back to the review space, and today we're gonna have a video game discussion. That's right, we're gonna talk about Tekken, Street Fighter. These two franchises coming together, and the game is called Street Fighter X Tekken. All right, let's get to it. Let's talk about it right now. Now, you know what I'm saying, this would normally be a trailer reaction and review, and I'd be talking about a trailer, and I would be describing it, but we all know that the game's coming out. I think most of us have actually seen the trailer or any kind of video with video game footage regarding this particular video game, so I guess I don't have to really review a single trailer. It's been out for a while. Game footage has been around on YouTube for a long time now, so I just want to talk about this particular game that's coming out now, or a particular couple of games, because there's different versions. Oh man. Okay, where do I begin with this? Street Fighter X Tekken, or Cross Tekken, however you want to say it. It's a good idea, you know. It's not a bad idea. It's actually it's something that I think fans of both franchises, of both Tekken and Street Fighter, might be interested in, because I'm a big fighting game fan. I love both of these fighting game series. I've been a fan of Street Fighter forever, and Tekken, I've loved Tekken for the past at least 7-8 years. So I follow both of these franchises relatively well. I think that the fact that these two video games are now coming together and sort of doing a cross collaboration kind of thing, it's something unique. It's something a little bit, you know, out of the norm from both franchises. Now, that's not to say that there's no problems with this. I got my personal, you know, problems. I got my issues with this thing, and we're gonna get into that a little bit later. First of all, let's describe the release date. So this is gonna come out apparently in Japan in March 8, 2012. So it's very, very close. Just over a month from now, really. In North America, March 6th, even earlier apparently, March 6th, 2012. And then later on in Europe, finally March 9th, 2012. It's going to be on disc, of course. So the game, there's going to be ported on different platforms. It's going to be on the PS3, the PlayStation Vita, which is the new handheld, the Xbox 360, and Microsoft Windows, so the PC. Right. Basically, this game essentially puts Tekken characters mixed with Street Fighter characters and in a 2D environment, and it's basically based on the 2D gameplay of the Street Fighter instead of the 3D of the Tekken, and it'll have like the fireball attacks, Hadoukens, etc. Namco, on the other hand, is they're currently making the other version, another game called Tekken Cross Street Fighter, or Tekken X Street Fighter, which then it'll be, the flip side will be the Tekken gameplay. It'll lean more towards the Tekken 3D style. It's an interesting idea. It's kind of different, but we're gonna get to the problems. We have various characters now that they have announced. Okay, these characters include guys like Cole from the infamous Sony PlayStation exclusive video games. We got Toro and Kuro. I don't know who Toro and Kuro is. Are they Sony mascots? Who are they? It's kind of, these are new names for me. I've never heard of Toro or Kuro. Toro is apparently a Sony cat. Is a fictional character created by SCEA or SCE. My bad, SCE. Not Sony of America. It is essentially an anthropomorphic, super deformed white cat. Wow, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Yeah, right. Toro and Kuro. I don't know who Kuro is. It's probably just another character like Toro. Could care less. And then we have Mega Man. Okay, Mega Man. Oh, snap. That's pretty interesting. And get this. Mega Man, who takes his appearance from the US box art of the first game? What the fizzle? Are you kidding me right now? Are you shocking me? Are you trying to shock me here? What's going on here? The English box art? The US box art for the first game? Yo, that's garbage! That box art is trash. What? I mean, look at him. He looks terrible. It's like a really retarded looking Mega Man. That's not even Mega Man. It's a guy in a suit. In a retarded blue and yellow suit with not even like a mask over his face. He's got like a head dome helmet over his head, and then he's got like his normal face. He doesn't even look like Mega Man. He's holding a gun. Oh, this, ladies and gentlemen, this is absolute trash. I cannot believe this. This is the first time I'm learning of this. This is the first. I didn't even hear that Mega Man was going to be in it. Okay, what else? Street Fighter's Dawn, seen in the initial Street Fighter X Tekken reveal trailer, will make a non-playable appearance as the instructor in the game's training mode. Ono stated that there is no exclusive character for the Xbox 360 version. You 360 owners, you're getting the shaft. Oh, that's that's that Japanese connection, yo. That's that Sony Japanese connection. Sony, Namco, Capcom connection. That's all Japanese companies, you know. So they're not gonna have little American Xbox 360. They're not gonna give it exclusives. So it's not gonna be guaranteed. It's not the better version, unfortunately. So that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Claiming we do have the exclusive characters for the Sony. We have Cole, the two Sony cats, but basically for the 360, we were in discussions with Microsoft for which characters to put in as exclusive, but we weren't able to decide on a character because of differences in timing and things like that. Oh yeah, right. Give me a break. Differences in timing. Yeah, my backside, okay? My foot. You kidding me? Oh, it's that Japanese connection, man. It's that Japanese clique. You know what I'm saying? Them Japanese companies, they will do business with each other before North American, you know what I'm saying? And the only reason that Tekken 6 made it to the Xbox 360, you know, for years upon years, ever since the Tekken came out, the original Tekken, Tekken 2, Tekken 3, Tekken 4, Tekken 5, Dark Resurrection, these games were initially for the Sony consoles, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, the PSP, was because they were Japanese, you know, it was a Japanese connection, because Namco is a Japanese company, and Sony is a Japanese company, and then they have that connection going. You know, it's not like, and you know, back then, they didn't really have a North American-based, prominent video game system anyway, so, again, that established relationship is there. That established relationship is there. Okay, so let's look at the characters, the normal characters. So for the Street Fighter side, we got Ryu, Ken, Guile, Abel, Chun-Li, Cammy, Sagat, Dhalsim, Poison, Hugo, Ibuki, Rolento, Zangief, Rufus, Balrog, Vega, Juri, and M. Bison. Not bad. That's not a bad list. Although there are some missing characters, I think, that are like, yo. So some of the characters, but like I didn't see like maybe Blanca. Where's Blanca up in this? Are you kidding? Blanca's not in this? Where's Blanca, man? Blanca's one of the coolest characters. Oh, come on. No Blanca? Oh, you guys are lame. Yo, that sucks. How can you not have a Street Fighter game without Blanca? And don't bring up Street Fighter Alpha, okay? Alpha was a I had my, yeah, that's my problem with the Alpha games. Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 didn't have Blanca, so that really, and then they finally brought him back in Alpha 3. You gotta have Blanca. He's one of the original characters. In my opinion, all the original characters from the first from Street Fighter 2, that legendary game, that iconic game, all those characters should be in any Street Fighter game. Otherwise, it's not Street Fighter. You know, they're gonna have Ryu in there, they're gonna have Ken, they're gonna have Guile, they're gonna have Chun-Li, and all these, you know, but, like, you know, where's E Honda? Where's E Honda? You could have, it would have been awesome to see E Honda against Ganryu. Oh, let me guess. Ganryu's not in the Tekken side. Oh my god. Oh, you pricks. Oh, you pricks. How can you exclude Ganryu and E Honda? That was a perfect dream match. Give me a break. All right, what else? Okay, so for the Tekken side, they got, oh my gosh, Kazuya, Nina, King, Marduk, Bob, Julia, Hwarang, Steve, Yoshimitsu, Raven, Kuma, Heihachi, Lily, Asuka, Law, Paul, and Xiaoyu. Where is Jin Kazama? Are you kidding me? Oh my god, man. I mean, you're missing some key characters in here. Oh, you dicks. Namco, you frickin' pricks. How can you exclude some of these characters, man? Oh, you dumbasses. Oh, you're gonna exclude Jin Kazama. He's like the poster boy for Tekken for the past... ever since Tekken 3, man. Since the 90s. I mean, Jin essentially replaced Kazuya as the poster boy since Tekken 3. That was like 97, 98. You gotta be joking me, man. Oh my god. Give me a break. You're gonna have Kuma in there. You're gonna have Steve. You're gonna have... I mean, you're gonna have Lily. You're gonna have Bob. Bob, for fat sakes. Fat Bob. And you're not gonna have Jin Kazama? What? I don't know. What are you guys smoking? I mean, this is the typical Capcom, Namco, like... Yeah, Namco, this is a surprise for Namco, but with Capcom I'm not surprised, because with Capcom, they like to nickel and dime their consumers. They've been doing it a lot. They'll take away characters, they'll exclude characters, they'll make them DLC, sometimes they'll not even make a character anymore. They'll discontinue a character, or not even include a character to begin with. But with Namco, with the Tekken franchise, they've always been pretty good, you know, in terms of including everybody. Look at Tekken 6. Look at the roster in Tekken 6. It's got a lot of characters. Look at Tekken 5. Dark Resurrection. These are games that had a lot. Tekken 3, Tekken Tag Tournament. This doesn't feel like a Tekken. It doesn't do justice. I should say it doesn't do justice to the Tekken franchise, to the Tekken characters. It feels more like this game is just a sample. It's going to give us a sample of the Tekken flavor. You see. They're going to give us a small sample of the Tekken roster by giving us guys like Kazuya, Heihachi, you know, Nina, King, Raven, and all these other characters. Some of these iconic characters from the Tekken franchise. But they're not going to include Jin. Are you joking me? Are you kidding me right now? Even Ling Xiaoyu. Ling Xiaoyu is not in here. Ling Xiaoyu. She's been there since Tekken 3 as well. And I mean, she's fairly popular. Anna's not in here, but maybe that's because they're like, oh well, we can only have one sister. You know, we can't have Anna, but we can have Nina. Who, in my opinion, I think Nina's always been more favored over Anna. Like, Anna's always been a secondary character. She's always been like the Miss Number 2. You know, she's always been number 2 to Nina. I think Nina's always been like that number 1 white girl, blonde girl character in the Tekken franchise. Kind of like how Cammy is the number 1 white girl in Street Fighter, and you know, like the Chun-Li, you know what I mean? Yeah, again, they have in Street Fighter they got Chun-Li, but they don't have Ling Xiaoyu. Again, another good comparison. I just noticed that they don't. Okay, no, they do. They have Cammy. Whew, they have Cammy for the Street Fighter, so at least we'll get to see Cammy against Nina. But you know. Marduk's one of my favorite characters, so that's cool. You know what I'm saying? We get to see Marduk. Bob, I mean, I can't believe they have Bob over, like, some of the, over Jin. I mean, that's just ridiculous right there. They got Heihachi, who is, you know, Heihachi's one of the more iconic characters for Tekken, so. Asuka, I like Asuka. She's basically just a replacement for Jun Kazama, basically. Oh no, no, Xiao Yu's. Oh, okay, Xiao Yu is there. Oh, okay, okay, so my bad. Okay, so Ling Xiao Yu is in this game. I'm sorry. Ling Xiao Yu is in the Tekken roster. Sorry, I missed out on her name. Yeah, so we will see Ling Xiao Yu against Chun Li. My bad. We will see Ling Xiao Yu against Chun Li, but oh man, we're missing Li Chaolan. You know, I think they don't have Lei Wulong. They don't have one of my other favorite characters. They don't have Bruce Irvin. I love Bruce. And speaking of black characters, where's Eddie? Where's Eddie Gordo? Eddie Gordo is really popular, especially in North America. Eddie Gordo is one of the most popular fighting game characters. I bet you, especially in North America. In the United States, he's a very well received character. Eddie Gordo has left a really long lasting legacy. You know, a lot of players, especially from the 90s, who played fighting games in arcades and stuff like that, remember Eddie Gordo. You know, he's that guy with the dreads, you know, the Brazilian dude who can do capoeira, because his fighting style was so unique, and he was just a very fresh character. You know, he was a fresh character. So he would have been a good addition. He would have been perfect. But no, you're not gonna have Eddie Gordo here. Idiots, man. That's retarded that you don't have an iconic character like that. I mean, oh my gosh, man. It's just, I think it's stupid. You know, I mean, you know, granted, they have some characters. You know, they got Raven. You know, they got Law, the Bruce Lee ripoff. They got Paul, of course. Paul, another popular character. Paul Phoenix. So it'd be cool to see Paul Phoenix against Guile. You know, that's another dream match. Paul Phoenix against Guile. Obviously, there's one character is based on the other one. You know, Guile being that first guy, and then Paul, you know, being that second version of Guile, basically. Ryu and Kazuya, yeah, I can see that. Ryu, you know, he's the first like archetypical Japanese hero with the gi, you know, the karate style gi. And then Kazuya sort of became another version of Ryu, you know, especially with his moves and his attire. You know, he does that uppercut thing. And to a certain extent, I think Ken and maybe Steve Fox, or, you know, Ken and Paul Phoenix, you know, there's a similarity there as well. In some respects, I think that Paul is actually a mix between Ken and Guile, you know, because he wears the gi as well, the red gi and stuff like that. But I mean, Yoshimitsu the ninja. I mean, who's he gonna look good against? Maybe Rolento. I don't know. He's got to have a weapon, like maybe Ibuki. You know, maybe Ibuki is a ninja. So, but I just cringe. You know, I'm cringing at the fact that they have a very limited Tekken roster. It feels so limited. It feels kind of like Tekken, but you can tell that they just, you know, it's 2012, people. How can you not include all the characters in there? How can you not include more? I mean, include at least 20 more characters. I would be happy with if they added 10 more characters on each side instead of just this roster right in front of us. They better have some new characters. They better have some hidden characters. This better not be the final roster. If it is, then it's sad. It's pretty pathetic. You know, I have a feeling that there's going to be DLC. There's going to be DLC. There's going to be so-called bonus content that you're going to have to pay extra money for, and you're going to have to pay like an extra $20-$30 for some kind of new version. So maybe like they're going to release this game. It's going to be Tekken, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and then they'll release a freaking expansion, and it's going to be a brand new one. You gotta have to rebuy it all over again, like Ultimate Street Fighter Cross Tekken. You know, like, don't be surprised if that happens. You know, that's how they like to nickel and dime the customers. So, you know, don't hold don't hold back any expectations. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. What else? What else is there? Let's talk about the exclusive characters. So we got Cole, who's going to be, apparently, I think he's going to be on the PS Vita version. Okay. I mean, I like Infamous. I'm an Infamous fan. I think Infamous is one of the best games for the PS3, one of the best exclusives for the PS3. I enjoy it. It's a good game. But, I mean, it feels more like a gimmick than anything else. You got to understand that a lot of these crossovers, a lot of these franchise versus franchise, you know, Marvel versus Capcom, Mortal Kombat versus DCU, and Tekken or Namco versus SNK, and you know, Capcom versus SNK. You know, these franchises, these crossovers, it's very gimmicky. They are basically, especially with these guest characters. You look at Soul Calibur, they include guys like freaking Darth Vader and Yoda from the Star Wars characters. Doesn't even make any sense. These nonsensical crossover characters. You know why they do this? People, you want to know why? Because fighting games don't sell anymore. Some people say that fighting games suck nowadays. You know, some people criticize fighting games. It sucks. It's terrible. It's garbage. I never have that mentality, but I can understand why fighting games aren't as mainstream anymore. They're not as mainstream, not like they were in the 90s when fighting games were freaking huge. They were massively popular. You got to understand that in the 90s, fighting games were the equivalent of FPS, first-person shooters now. They made fighting game after fighting game after fighting game after Street Fighter 2 after Street Fighter 2 in the early 90s. There's been so many imitators and wannabes and fighting games based and copied the Street Fighter. So you're talking about the SNK games like Fatal Fury and you know what is it? King of Fighters. You know what I mean? Samurai Showdown, which is a great game. I love Samurai Showdown. I love King of Fighters. I love that stuff. I like that stuff. But they're copies. They're wannabes. Gameplay, aesthetics, the fighting game, everything. The timer, the fighting game bar, the character models. You know, you look at Mortal Kombat was heavily based on certain aspects. Without Street Fighter, you wouldn't have Mortal Kombat. Even though I know that Mortal Kombat is more tap-based, the gameplay is a little bit, you know, more unique. It's a bit more different, but understand that, you know, without Street Fighter, you wouldn't have Mortal Kombat. What other ones? There's a lot. There's so many especially for the Super Nintendo in that 16-bit, you know, 92, 93, 94. The Dragon Ball games, you know, the 2D Dragon Ball games. It just goes on and on and on. And then you go to the 3D fighting, when they started making 3D fighting games, it was kind of a new dimension. It literally was. You added a third dimension to the gameplay, because now you could sidestep, and visually it looked very blocky and polygonal, but at that time it was very different. You know, it just looked more. There was a certain unique look about those particular 3D games from the PlayStation, Sega Saturn era of 1995. You know. You're talking about Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct was a 2D fighting game. Again, very successful for the Super Nintendo. At that time, it was the most prominent Nintendo exclusive fighting game. It was released in the arcades originally in 94 and then 95. Ports were made. Very good fighting game. And it borrowed a lot from Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. And then you look at games like Tekken and Virtua Fighter and Soul Calibur, Soul Edge, all these 3D fighting games, Battle Arena Tushinden, you know, these are all products. The reason they were made was because of the popularity of the fighting game franchise, of the fighting game genre. Street Fighter, you know, when these franchises in the 90s, it was very popular because of the arcades. That culture, that arcade culture was still around. So when Street Fighter came out, a lot of people got a chance to play it the first time on the arcades. It wasn't in the home consoles. It wasn't on the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis, because it wasn't even out for those consoles yet. You know what I mean? It was later ported onto the home systems. But Street Fighter 2 became popular in the arcades first. And again, that arcade culture persisted even in the mid 90s, you know, in the early mid 90s, it continued, and then it started to fade away gradually by the late 90s. But and then all these other games, you know, like I mentioned, Killer Instinct, you know, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Virtua Fighter, and so on and so forth, were staples in arcade machines. And so I think that back then there was a lot more exposure. You know, you could go to your local mall or the downtown freaking, you know, arcade area and enjoy a fighting game, enjoy Killer Instinct 2, you know what I mean? So people were more aware of fighting games back then compared to now. People were more they were more used to fighting games. You know, it was more common. Unlike now, where it's mostly about home video games for the consoles, I should say. Video games for the home console. You're talking about COD, Call of Duty. You're talking about the Halos. You're talking about the Killzones. You're talking about Skyrim. You're talking about Warcraft. These games are meant for either the computer, the PC, the console, and there's always this element of online, the online market, the online gamers, and that's really the biggest market right now. Maybe with the exception of the Nintendo consumer, that's a little bit more different. Like the Nintendo Wii is more about younger audiences too. You're talking about like the Mario Karts and the Super Mario Brothers and all that stuff. It's for a younger demographic. It's for casual gamers. It's for non-hardcore, it's a different crowd, you know, but it still has that element of I mean, let's look at Smash Brothers, for example. Smash Brothers was a really it's still a really popular franchise and the prominent fighting game of Nintendo right now. Smash Brothers is a fighting game, but it's very different. It's a different style of fighting game. You'll never, first of all, you'll never see Smash Brothers in the arcades. I think it has elements of... It was based on Mario Brothers, the arcade game from the 80s, like some elements, that kind of jumping on a platform and the multi-platform stages where you can jump up and jump up another platform, and that kind of what is the word? It's like a tournament kind of free-for-all. Yeah, there you go, free-for-all type of environment, as opposed to a traditional fighting game where it's one-on-one. You have a character on the left, character on the right, and they're opposing each other, and they're facing each other off in a single arena, face to face, and that's it. Okay, so I think Smash Brothers is basically a different breed of fighting game. You know, it's a unique fighting game. There's something different about it. It's very arcadey. It's very different. Its gameplay is more chaotic, and the strategy. Ultimately, the strategy of that fighting game is more, it's not the same, basically. It's not like a 3D fighter, it's not like a 2D fighter. It's more of it's a very arcadey, different game, really. And I think that's why it's so successful, is because it was able to be a unique fighter on its own. You know, Nintendo and, you know, the GameCube, the N64, the Nintendo Wii, has supported that franchise consistently, so there's a reason why it's so successful. There's a reason why people like it. It's very similar to, I think, the Naruto games too. Like, you look at the Naruto video games, you know, even the Dragon Ball video games to a certain extent, that kind of chaotic gameplay, it's not exactly the same as the traditional one-on-one 2D or 3D fighting game, like a Tekken, like a Street Fighter. So I guess my point is that if you're unique enough, if your franchise, if your style of video games is unique and popular enough, then you'll still sell copies, you'll still sell, and your franchise will still sell. It also has to do with the popularity. You take a look at Smash Brothers. It's a combination of different mascots, man. It's a combination of, like, you got Link, you got Kirby, you got Donkey Kong, Mario, Bowser, and a whole list of guest characters. You know, they'll have like Solid Snake, Sonic. You know, these are unique characters that you'll only find in that game. this entire collection of characters you'll only find in the Smash Brothers. So there's that too. There's that gimmick element of having different characters from different franchises being that draw and being the reason for people to want to play it to begin with, because it's got that multiple selection of different characters that are popular from other genres of video games. So you look at Dragon Ball Z games, the Budokai series, they're still selling because it's Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is popular. It's always going to be popular. People are still going to keep buying it. Same with Naruto, and so on and so forth. The main difference is that these are anime-based fighting games. You look at Street Fighter, you look at Tekken, you look at Mortal Kombat. These are primarily made from the fighting game. They were popular because they were fighting games to begin with, not because they were made from a movie, not because they were from other video games, not because they're a collection of other characters from other games, but because they were originally a good collection of different characters, unique characters with different fighting styles. You're talking about Muay Thai, you're talking about karate, you're talking about boxing, you're talking about sumo wrestling, kickboxing, different styles of fighting in a single game with these unique aesthetically cool looking characters. And that's an important, you got to make stars out of these different characters. You got to make stars out of different different fighting game characters, these unique personalities. They have to be unique. They can't be bland, boring characters. They can't be generic. Every character can't all be the same. It has to be unique. It has to be different. But my point is that it's a little bit, I think, it's a little bit tougher for these fighting games like Street Fighter and Tekken to maintain their longevity because they were from fighting games to begin with. They weren't supported by an actual machine that was a previous franchise or a previous. They're not from an already established franchise, is basically what I mean. Is you're not making a character based on Marvel characters, for example. You're not making, like, let's make a fighting game out of the Marvel characters. Let's make a fighting game and it's going to have Iron Man, Wolverine, Spider-Man, War Machine, the Avengers, all the Avengers characters, the X-Men characters, all those characters, all the Spider-Man villains, and, Venom and Carnage and all those guys. You can make that video game, that's a dream video game, but we know these characters already. We already know Iron Man. We already know Wolverine. We already know Spider-Man. So people are going to be these fans that are already established. The already established fan base of these characters who follow the comic books, who follow the cartoons, who follow the movies, who will look at the video games and go, wow, that's cool. I'm going to go buy that. You don't get that with Street Fighter. Street Fighter doesn't have that. Tekken doesn't have that. Soul Calibur doesn't have that. Virtua Fighter doesn't have that. Killer Instinct doesn't have that, and so on and so forth. Mortal Kombat doesn't have that. Because, again, they were originally from the games. And I think that's part of the reason why it's not as popular. Because you have to be established to begin with. You have to be very popular to the point that... in the 90s, if you didn't play video games, if you weren't a video game fan, even if you like comic books, if you like cartoons, if you like movies, but you didn't follow video games, you didn't play Street Fighter, you didn't play Mortal Kombat in the arcades, you didn't play Killer Instinct, you didn't play Tekken, then you wouldn't know jack squat about these franchises. And so when a video game comes out, you're going to be like, who cares? Or, I don't know this. You're like, ooh, that's, I don't know these guys, man. Like, I don't know. That's why when Smash Brothers came out, everybody was excited because people knew Zelda. Or Link, I should say, the Link from Zelda. Everybody knew Mario. Everybody knew Bowser. Everybody knew Donkey Kong. So, everybody knew Samus Aran from Metroid. So that's why it was exciting. That's the difference between some of these fighting games. Not all fighting games are the same. The real fighting games, the core original OG fighters like the Street Fighters and the Mortal Kombats and the Tekken, their fame and their popularity, their fan base, they have to rely on their already established fan base from when those games came out. So people like me who play the original games to begin with, those are the people who, to this day, support those franchises. I mean, yeah, there's new fans, there's new people playing it, of course, there's new fans that are discovering these games, but if you speak to a Mortal Kombat fan, 25, 26 years old, who played the original Mortal Kombat games at the arcade, that's somebody who knows what they're talking about, somebody who is more willing to pay and pay attention, not just pay money, pay attention to the franchise, and actually, whoa, there's Mortal Kombat, I know Mortal Kombat, I know Liu Kang, I know Scorpion, I know Sub-Zero, I know what that's all about, I'm gonna go spend money on that, instead of some a young, let's say a 15-year-old fan who plays Call of Duty all day and has no idea what Mortal Kombat's all about. They might have heard of it, like, oh yeah, Mortal Kombat, my older brother used to play it or whatever, but I just never got into it. They might not necessarily, they don't have that investment. They don't have that investment, that knowledge, that experience with fighting games to begin with for them to want to get into it. So back to my main point of that, in the 90s, fighting games were more popular because of these factors, the arcades, because of accessibility, the amount of imitation games, the fact that there were so many different fighting games at that time, and it was just more popular back then. It was a more popular genre. Now you look at today, you look at the first-person shooters, you look at FPS games like the CODs, the Halos, the Killzones, so many games, and that's what's popular now because that's the style of gaming that's the style of gaming that's kind of the current trendy thing, to have an online game against somebody really far away in a first-person environment, in a first-person, shoot 'em up kind of thing. Which is cool, that's cool. I love first-person shooters, but that's just the main difference. That's like the generational gap. That's the generational difference between fans, is that, and that's why you can't really, it really hurts me when somebody disrespects fighting games and they don't know what the hell they're talking about, you know what I'm saying? When some ignorant idiot who was born in 1999 has no idea how amazing fighting games were. That's like some moron from this generation who likes the PG era, the WWE wrestling of today, or the PG era, and then they're like, oh, the Attitude Era, who cares, that sucked, when they weren't even there in the Attitude Era. It was awesome back then. You know what I mean? It was awesome then. You had to be there. You had to really have been there and actually lived it to appreciate how dope it was, how good it was. And that's why to a lot of fans like myself, Street Fighter X Tekken is very interesting. But like I said, there's problems. To this day, they will keep making fighting games, with the exception of maybe one or two, or a brand new IP, with the exception of one IP here and there. Many of the mainstream ones they have some kind of crossover gimmick. So I already mentioned, Darth Vader and Yoda, the Star Wars characters appearing in Soul Calibur, and even before that, Soul Calibur 2, you had Link from Nintendo appearing in the GameCube exclusive, the GameCube version, I should say. For the Sony, it was Heihachi from Tekken, and for the Xbox version of Soul Calibur 2, it was Spawn. Spawn, who is the comic book character. I've reviewed his action figure many times now. So, they have to rely on these gimmicks, these gimmicky crossover things, because they don't sell as much. And if they have these gimmicks, again, Mortal Kombat versus DCU. The DC Universe, for some reason, they got a crossover with Mortal Kombat. Doesn't even really make any sense, if you think about it. especially with the very PG attitude of the DC guys, that they won't even let the DC characters have fatalities and, you know, crazy violence. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. It doesn't really. It made that game kind of crappier because it didn't have the signature Mortal Kombat violence and overt brutality and gore. You know, it took away from the game. So that's why you know, I mean, it was a decent game. It was a decent fighter. The control mechanics were there. The graphics were pretty good, but you know, the character selection was pretty diverse, but it just wasn't amazing because it wasn't faithful to the Mortal Kombat franchise. Much in the same way that having Cole from Infamous doesn't make any sense to Street Fighter or Tekken. Cole's not even a character from Namco or Capcom. Why is he there? Why is he a character on the PS Vita version? Because he's a gimmick. Because he's a gimmick, that's it. He's a gimmick character. For some reason, they think that putting these gimmick characters will increase the sales. And unfortunately, they're right. Because it does increase sales. When you have Marvel versus Capcom, and they keep rehashing it, like Ultimate Marvel versus Capcom being released, Marvel versus Capcom 3 is what I meant. I mean, these crossovers are very, very gimmicky. It doesn't make any sense. It is a complete cash-in because obviously they're just using both franchises, the drawing power, the brand power of both franchises to make one fighting game, and so they can sell a lot of copies. You know, they want to sell. They do want to make money. You got to understand, it's a business. It's a business. They're trying to make money. But the problem is that, I guess, I mean, it's more of a lack of creativity. That's my main problem, is that instead of, let's say, making something completely different that will, you know, progress the fighting game genre to heights it's never seen before. Because in my opinion, the fighting game genre kind of peaked in terms of gameplay and accessibility and excitement in the late 90s. So with games like Soul Calibur and things like that, you know, Soul Calibur, Street Fighter 3, Mortal Kombat 4. After fighting games became 3D, they went 3D. First they were 2D, and then 3D, and then they kind of perfected the 3D to a certain extent. You know, Tekken Tag Tournament. There's another one, Tekken Tag Tournament, great fighting game. So that era, that late 90s, early 2000, that was probably the pinnacle of innovation when it comes to fighting games. Because with the exception of maybe Smash Brothers, which again, another innovative game, but that's from like 1999. Smash Brothers, the first one for the N64. Those games, the fighting genre hasn't been as innovative. They haven't really tried anything new. You look at the Soul Calibur games, it's the same thing. It's the same eight sidestep, 8-step system. You know, the sidestepping, the same basic gameplay, the same pretty much identical gameplay since Soul Calibur 1. You look at Tekken, which is, it's always been about the juggles, it's always been about the combos, it's always been about that fast-paced, it's all about the timing and performing the combos and the juggles correctly and mastering every character. Well, we've had that since the 90s. We've had that since Tekken, the first Tekken, really. And I think that Tekken 3 and Tekken Tag Tournament are arguably like the pinnacle of just the innovation, the feel of the games, you know. Like, let's look at Tekken 6, for example. Was Tekken 6 that innovative? Was it really that different from, let's say, Dark Resurrection or Tekken 5? Or even Tekken 4 from, like, 2001? Not really. No, no. You play Tekken 6 and it's okay. It's got a lot of characters. It's a fast-paced game. They have a few more moves and stuff like that. They have a few more, I call them knockdown moves. They have knockdowns where you can juggle the characters when you knock them on the ground. That's something new. But it just further adds to the, it's basically just another variation on the juggle. You know, it's just another juggle system, basically. They're not including... I mean... I miss Killer Instinct. You know, if you want to talk about a very cool fighting game, look at Killer Instinct. Remember Killer Instinct back in the 90s? I mean, that being able to have like 100 plus combos, you know, 20, 30 hit combos, fatalities, you know, they call it something else. It wasn't called fatalities. No, I think they were called No Mercies. But it was basically a finishing move. So, like, Tekken doesn't have finishing moves. Virtua Fighter, same thing. Was Virtua Fighter 5 that much different from Virtua Fighter 4? No! The gameplay is still there. It's still the same basic gameplay, just with better looking graphics. Smoother, current gen graphics, but the same general gameplay. They haven't really innovated it. They haven't pushed it to the limits. What they did was they kind of make small improvements in the actual fighting engine, where they would add new moves, new throws, new ways to initiate juggles and things like that. They'll add new characters here and there. Obviously, the graphics get a little bit better over time, but the problem is that they're not pushing it as much as they should. If you take a look between, you know, you compare first-person shooters to fighting games, I think that first-person shooters has improved much more than fighting games. I mean, at least with, you know, with Midway and Mortal Kombat, now they're called NetherRealm Studios, but they were able to at least, you know, try with multiplayer, because it is a North American company, it's an American company. They're able to understand that online is more important. You gotta focus on online, and Mortal Kombat does that. They do it really well. That's one thing that I think the Mortal Kombat franchise has done really well and has been able to adapt very well, is the online. Because they understand the market. It's got to be accessible. It's got to be fun. It's got to be easy. It's got to feel like you're really getting into these games online against another character, against another player. And to me, that's always been kind of my dream when I played fighting games in the 90s, was to play these games online, to play these games against other people. Not just a split-screen type of game, not just a, you know, I pick up a controller, you pick up a controller, we play on the same system, and then we fight each other. Or, you know, in the arcades, where we can fight each other on the arcades, but that's pretty much it. That's the extent of the accessibility of these systems. No, we live in the computer age now. We live in the internet age, where we can access the pretty much, you know, different countries, different continents. I can play a character from Australia, from England, from Japan, or at least I should be able to. But there's problems with that too. I mean, with the online, it's still not perfect. You know, there's lag issues, and it gets buggy, and people cheat. You know, there's a lot of cheating and cheap players. But I mean, I guess that comes with the, you know, that's like the everlasting internet thing, is that there's always going to be cheaters and hackers and stuff. But I think my point is that online for fighting games should be very easy to get into. It should be a lot easier. It shouldn't be as buggy as it is, or as laggy, or as ridiculous as it shouldn't be as dumb as it is. It should be a lot more sophisticated, like in first-person shooters, you know? I mean, and I think in many ways too, as big a fan as I am when it comes to fighting games, in many respects I think that fighting games itself, the genre is kind of outdated. There's an outdated feel to it, you know? There's an outdated nature to the fighting games. And what I mean is that from a storyline point of view, from a character development point of view, from a production point of view, from an approach, the fighting game approach has always been specific. Here's 8 or 10 characters that you can play, and they're gonna have their own little storyline, and there's gonna be, you're gonna fight like 10 characters in the storyline mode, in the campaign mode, whatever you want to call it. There might be a small ending at the end after you beat the boss, and that's it. And that's about it. And then other additional modes would be, you know, versus mode. You can fight other characters. There's practice mode. You know, maybe there's a practice mode with some of these ones. You can learn the different fighting moves of the characters. And that's, you know, that's pretty much the extent of most of these fighting games. I mean, I remember playing this game called Blaze Blue for the PS3. I think it was the second one. It wasn't Calamity Trigger. It was the second one. Continuum Shift, I think it was. It didn't really impress me at all. Everybody said that you know, the Blaze Blue games are really amazing, and like, wow, the storyline's amazing, and like it's just one of the best the newcomer fighting games. I thought it was very average. The fighting style, the feel of the game itself, the flavor of the game itself it didn't feel innovative, it didn't feel amazing. It had a kind of a cool look, you know, it had a kind of like a new age, you know, 2D look to it, kind of like a Guilty Gear. It's kind of like a spiritual Guilty Gear kind of game. So, I mean, it just wasn't my cup of tea, you know, it wasn't my personal, it didn't impress me, basically. I wasn't like, oh my god, this is the savior of fighting games. No, I was like, yeah, Blaze Blue, it's alright. It's okay. And then you look at other fighting games like Naruto and Dragon Ball and these anime-based fighting games that aren't really amazing. I don't really like these games either. I had Budokai Tenkaichi 3, but I got rid of it because every character played the exact same. Every character had the same gameplay. I think, sure, to the casual gamer, somebody who doesn't really love fighting games but might love Dragon Ball, they might get a kick out of it because it's very easy, it's very accessible. But that's not, to me, that's a very easy fighting game. It's a very basic, you know, it's not really a fighting game, it's more of a brawler type of game where every character has the same gameplay. Naruto is like that too. The Naruto fighting games are like that. With Tekken, Virtua Fighter, Street Fighter, even Mortal Kombat, at least each character is different. I think for me that's always been the appeal of fighting games, is that every character, you should master every character, or you should pick one character out of, like, let's say 20 characters. You pick one, the one that you like, you master that character, you play with that character over and over again, you use the character's moves, you master the moves and different combos, and you get good at that character, you get good with that character, and then you go to tournaments. You face real people, you go to tournaments, you meet other players of that game, and then you fight, because that's what it's supposed to be. It's really, I think that's what fighting games are meant for. You become really good at one character, and then you're a beast, and then you just go into the world and you fight other players who play that fighting game and then who think that they're really good too. So that competitiveness, because that's what a fighting game is, essentially, is basically you master one dude, and then you become, you sort of, you represent that character, or the character represents you. What, you know, it's just, I think that's the appeal of fighting games, and, you know, not everybody's into that. I think not everybody can pick up a fighting game and be a master at it. Not everybody can. You know, some people have blocks. Some people have mental blocks when it comes to fighting games. I mean, there's people online who admittedly say that they don't get into fighting games. They can't really master it because somehow they just can't master a character and, like, really master the combos and the different moves and stuff. I'm like the complete opposite, you know. I think it's because I grew up on fighting games. You know, I tend to master the different fighting styles. You know, I love the challenge. To me, that's the challenge of a fighting game. It's not about beating or completing the campaign mode, which is very short, and then you get the ending and all that stuff, and you beat the final boss, because anybody can adjust the difficulty. You know, you can adjust it to easy, medium, very hard, you know, etc. It's more about mastering the different characters yourself, you know, and being really good at that particular character. That's how you really beat a fighting game. That's how you finish a fighting game. I'll give you an example. In Tekken 5, you can go up to Tekken Lord. Tekken Lord is the highest rank of every character. and it takes a really long time to get there. You got to beat a lot of other characters in the arcade mode. So this is basically how you advance in rank. So you got Kyu, you got these different tiers basically. So you're a warlord, you're a sage, and then you keep moving up the ranks until eventually you're a Tekken Lord. You know, so once you get that rank, it means that you did really good with that character. That you're able to develop some kind of skill or strategy with that character and be very good. And that's the challenge. And I think that most players today don't have that. They don't get that. They don't get that. They don't understand that with fighting games. I think that's the main block. That's the main mental block that people have with fighters, is that they just can't get into it because of that reason. Because it's such a hardcore game. Fighting games are very hardcore. It's for the hardcore player. It's not for the casual, you know, wussy, you know, weak, you know, lame player that, you know, just picks up any kind of game. They can just beat it in, like, you know, a day or two. Fighting games take time. They take time. You gotta grind and really, like, get into the art of being a fighter in that game. So I think that when it comes to Street Fighter Cross Tekken, I think it should be good. I mean, the gameplay should be tight. It should have that classic 2D action style of gameplay that we've all come to know and enjoy from Street Fighter. It's going to be unique, if anything else, to play as the Tekken characters, understanding their gameplay, you know, mastering the moves and the special attacks and stuff like that. It'll be kind of cool, you know. I'm looking forward to that. And gimmicky, you know, the gimmicky crossover thing aside, it should be a pretty cool thing. It should be a pretty cool, you know what I'm saying, pretty cool crossover. It is gimmicky. It is a very, it's an obvious cash in, but heck, I mean, it's a long time coming. If anything else, at least they're trying something a little bit different by having these two franchises come together in a real fighting game environment. And, you know, Tekken is finally becoming they're a 2D fighting game now, and that's not even including Tekken Advance for the Game Boy Advance, which in my opinion was pretty much a 2D fighting game, but it was a different game anyway. Alright, so that's it for now. You know what I'm saying, for this particular Street Fighter Cross Tekken. I think I'm gonna be making some reviews regarding these games, most likely in the future. You know what I'm saying? So hey, stay tuned. You know, watch the rest of the video, check out the rest of the channel, comment, rate, subscribe. And until next time, ciao.